Hey everyone, Mark here. Welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. I have a very special guest tonight. I've been over in his neck of the woods. He's returning the favor this evening. It's Chris from the Cult Film Companion Podcast. How you doing today, Chris?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to this one because, uh, the nature of my show, I don't get to talk about recent movies too often. So this is a treat for me.
Yeah, well, this one's not too recent, which is
No,
nice, but it's not really a cult film either.
way too mainstream for my.
Way too mainstream, and that film, of course, is one of Denis Villeneuve's early films, early English films, because he is French Canadian, you know. Sicario, which I had never watched.
Really?
Which I just so everyone knows where we're starting from here. I wanted to return the favor and get you on the show, and you said, "What do you want to talk about?" So I grabbed a chunk from back there that you can't
Right.
quite see off camera, a chunk of movies, and I sent you a picture. I said, "Pick one," and you went, "Ooh, Sicario."
Yes.
And I was like, "Because I own it, knowing I need to watch it, having meant to watch it, which is why I bought it." And I was happy you did, because like now I can't not watch it. I have no excuses. Nothing can jump in the way.
Yeah.
We have to talk about Sicario, so I had to watch Sicario. Because A, Josh Brolin, Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, and Denis Villeneuve. And I haven't met anyone that hates the film, so I'm like, okay, I get it.
He's made. So here's the thing. I can easily, as a film fan, I can easily differentiate between what a director's best movie is and opposed to my favorite of his.
Right.
Now, I would argue, and I think a lot of people would say Dune. I'm going to say Sicario is his best movie. That's
Okay, so here's the deal. Let's talk about
okay.
let's run through. Okay, so the English language films. He
Right.
made his he made his name, and then he got to come do the big films in the English. Um, let's talk about those. Prisoners,
Love it.
great film. Enemy,
My
not for everyone.
No, and
Good film, not for everyone.
that's weird because that's my personal favorite of his. There's something there's something about that movie. There's something about Jake Gyllenhaal's performances. Um,
Yes.
Not since Jeremy Irons in Dead Ringers have I seen an actor portray um brother.
Multiple
Well,
selves.
yeah, I mean the same person, ostensibly the same person.
Right.
Um, But yeah, he like those are the two, and
Well,
I know that Enemy is one that people don't get, and
it's easy to throw that one out. But so there goes Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario,
right,
Arrival,
yep,
Blade Runner 2049, Dune. And on tap, he's got Dune Part 2. He's
right.
got Cleopatra down the road, which I think is the one with Gal Gadot. So
Ooh.
I don't know. She wants that film really bad. That's perhaps a subject for another time.
She might be the only one that wants that film really bad. Well, with her
Maybe.
in the role.
Well, yeah.
No.
But so he's got a chunk of film. Now, if you wanted to ask me, my favorite of those
Yes, yeah. What
is probably Arrival.
Arrival is
I
brilliant.
love Arrival, and I think by a hair, it's a better film than Sicario. And I think, and we're going to get into. I'll tell you why. Let's talk about Sicario. Let's talk about
Sure.
what Sicario is.
Just
First.
I don't know if you're aware. It comes up in the opening text, but for those of people that are not aware, Sicario referred initially to back to I think like the Romans and the Greeks. It was warriors that would go and track down the people that were entering their and trying to conquer other lands.
Yes.
But I do believe that Sicario now refers to in Spanish is hitman.
Hitman.
So
Yes, that's where they finish it up.
right.
That intro. So yeah. So they go from like vengeful warrior type definition. I don't remember the exact phrasing of it, but it
Mm-hmm.
is really good. and then now it's just generally kind of accepted to mean hitman. But what it is, what the film is about, let's plot. Emily Blunt is FBI agent who specializes in hostage rescue, but she's
Kidnappings, I believe.
tasked
Yeah, kidnapping.
You're right, kidnapping recovery. She works on the southern border, dealing with human trafficking, so finding people that have been trafficked and getting them, rescued and whatnot. She's approached after a one of the most horrific crime scenes ever, that you don't see any crime in it really, but the crime scene is just so incredibly impressive, and I don't want to ruin it yet.
No.
She's approached by her superiors and Josh Brolin to work with a multi-jurisdiction or multi-agency task force.
Hmm.
I've been in the government for wow, long time, 30 plus years. And anytime you get multi something, that means nobody wants responsibility for it. Multi-agency, multi whatever, it does not matter. Multi-service, nobody wants to be the fall guy.
Well, because
So
that way, you can't
you
point
can
one finger.
always
You've
point the
got to
finger.
point like all fingers on your hands at all the different people that have their
Yep.
mitts in the pot. Yeah.
So yeah, they want her to help them deal with the smuggling issue. And they don't lie to her necessarily about what they're doing. She asks, "What are we actually doing?" And he goes, "I can't even remember how he said. We're gonna basically says we're gonna fuck some shit up. We're
Something
gonna
like
hit back with
we're gonna shake the tree and see what comes out. He has a lot of different, very vague, generic answers that like he's
yeah,
prepared. He's like, we're just gonna make a lot of noise and see who
yeah,
who's gonna raise an eyebrow about it. Um,
yep,
I I will say this though. I know you haven't seen the second movie. Um, so both these movies, the biggest difference is it's not Denis Villeneuve did not direct Day the Soldado, and
yeah.
Emily Blunt doesn't return. But the other cast, Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro, who I would say that I know that she gets top billing for Sicario, and she's excellent in this role. But
Mhm.
this is Benicio's movie.
It is. You
He
can make an argument that it's Brolin's, but it really is Del Toro's.
Well, the first couple times I watched it, I'm like, I was really invested with Emily Blunt's character, and then I was
Mhm.
like, Josh Brolin when he's not chewing gum, I get it. He's like the government agent who's seen it
Right?
all. But there's a couple of
Yeah,
scenes where he's literally chewing gum throughout the entire time. It's very distracting, but he has some excellent, excellent scenes. But upon this last rewatch that I did last night, I was like, this is Benicio's movie.
yeah,
Any scene he is in, he's not the first character introduced. He comes in, about 20 minutes into the movie or so.
yep.
But he's the one, and the emotional toll that the entire movie takes upon people is it's I don't know, it's just kind of summed up in this final scene between him and Emily Blunt. And he gets to shine even more. I don't So it's interesting to me because she's brought in as for the kidnapping strategy.
Right.
Sicario, the first one, deals with drug smuggling. Um, Day of the Soldado delves more into human trafficking, which are kind of intrinsically linked. I mean,
Yeah.
those cartels are kind of ruthless for their styles and what they perpetrate. So
Oh yeah.
it's not a big surprise to me that they, instead of doing, it's still the same task force. They're still dealing with the cartels, but the focus is more so on the human trafficking end, whereas the original Sicario is much more about drug trafficking. And there's something for someone that doesn't like too much politics in their movies, especially which something that's kind of hyped up in the trailer. It kind of makes this seem like it's an action movie. And don't get me wrong, there are action scenes.
Oh
This
yeah.
is much more of a human drama. The fact that they did something risky, which is to
They being the
humanize
characters or they being the filmmakers?
the filmmakers. I think.
Okay.
Well, I think. it all comes down to this is a great screenplay, and I had to go back and check, and I completely forgot.
Taylor
This
Sheridan.
is Taylor Sheridan who did Hell or High Water. Um, he wrote that,
Basic.
which is excellent, and he did a movie called Wind River, starring
Yep.
Jeremy Renner and
Elizabeth Olsen.
thank you. That was the first time that he directed any of his scripts, and I think he's involved in Yellowstone. But he's one of these screenwriters that he's just got this very original, unique take
Yep.
on crime and law enforcement, and I mean something like Wind River is much smaller compared to something like Sicario, which I mean we're
This was his
talking.
first script, by the way.
Was it?
Yep.
He came out of the gate
Sicario.
with Sicario.
Okay, right.
Wow.
Here's his writing credits. Ready? Sicario, Hell or
Right.
High Water, Wind River, Day of the Soldado, Last Cowboy Without Remorse, Those Who Wish Me Dead. That one wasn't that good. There's a miss. Then he wrote some TV, and now he's on Yellowstone. Yeah,
Right.
but yeah, so he came out Sicario, Hell or High Water, Wind River.
I mean, geez.
Right?
I mean that's a resume right there. You could have ended
Prisoner's
there.
Enemy, Sicario. I'm just saying
I yeah.
that's a
I,
nice double trifecta.
I was gonna say the matching of these two, it just goes to show that someone like Denis Villeneuve is such a versatile director. I mean, just the movies that you just listed couldn't be more different.
Nope.
Um, I mean, there are similar elements. They're all very. I admittedly have not seen Dune because sci-fi is not really my bag, and I'm still recovering from David Lynch's Dune that I've
Yeah, that's a guilty pleasure. But again, that's an argument for another day.
right. But his versatility as a director, look, just I mean, the human drama, the of prisoners, the
Mm-hmm.
complete existential Kafka-esque mind journey that is Enemy,
Enemy.
that is again my favorite. But that's I might be biased for some reason. I just like these kinds of movies that make you kind of
Oh
think,
yeah.
and I know that when people get to the ending, if you haven't seen Enemy, it's not the most shocking final scene in a movie I've ever seen. It is probably the most confusing.
Confusing. Exactly the word I was going to use.
um,
Definitely. 100%. Did you see The Black Phone yet?
I haven't. I've heard nothing but good things.
It's good things. It's good things. Go watch it.
Um,
But yeah, no, but yeah, Villeneuve, he's so, and then, then he rolls into sci-fi,
with Arrival,
Arrival,
right?
2049, Dune. I withhold judgment on Dune, not because Lynch's version is a guilty pleasure, but because it's half a movie.
Yeah, smart.
That was my biggest complaint when I came out. Everyone's like, "It's a great movie." I go, "It's a great half a movie."
I think
Uh,
I think my plan for Dune is that I will wait, just because it's not something that it's really that I'm kind of like scratching at the door
no,
to really get it.
wait
I
for the double box set 4K special editions.
I'm gonna
Uh,
watch. I want to see the full story.
yeah,
I'm just that kind of person. So
yeah, but he makes beautiful movies. So
absolutely,
that's actually really nice, and even that shows up in here. I mean, it's shot in El Paso and Juarez, um, or it's about El Paso and Juarez.
hmm
But even the filthiest, nastiest, most violent things that are going on are just impeccably shot. The cells are wonderfully composed. The lighting is great, uh, and then he gets these performances out of these actors and gets them to plumb. You're right. All of his movies, even 2049, they all come down to the people.
they do.
Um,
And for something like you would think something like Sicario dealing with drug cartels and drug trafficking and American governments trying to combat that, or something like a sequel to Blade Runner,
yep.
where the first Blade Runner does have is a lot more action. To me, what I really like about Villeneuve's films are that you get to sit with these characters in scenes that another director might have cut or not even shot.
Right.
And you
He
get
doesn't
this,
rush through anything.
he doesn't. And I think that's kind of why some people gave Blade Runner 2049 the cold shoulder, um, because it's
Well,
not
it's a fine line between purpose and dragging. He's always he tends to be very purposeful, but if you don't like that sort of thing, then yes, it kind of drags. Um,
which is I think why I like Enemy the best, because of all that seems to be the tightest of his movies, pacing wise, and I'm guessing lengthwise too. Um,
Probably.
but just Sicario, like
Oh my
he's
God, yeah. Enemy is a brisk 91 minutes.
right. Um,
So,
I was
oh
gonna
my
say,
God, yeah. Prisoners is 2.5,
but
and that's a
now
great
all
two
I
and a
will
half
say about
hours.
Prisoners earns its runtime. Like that
Yeah,
movie's if you're gonna look up intense movies in the dictionary, I think you're gonna see something like Prisoners, and you're gonna see Good Time by the Safdie brothers. Those are two of the most intense movies that I've seen. The thing with Sicario that I just loved, that I kind of realized while sitting when I was watching it, is that it's purposefully very vague on plot and on what the actual mission of this is. They very wisely introduce us to Emily Blunt. We go with her into this journey with this government
yep,
agency. She's given very, very vague general knowledge. She's fed information. They kind of know the buzzwords that are going to get her on board,
yep.
and we're not doing spoilers, right?
We can do whatever we want, man. The movie's
Okay,
been out since 2015.
okay. So I'm just gonna say the real reason that she's on this task force. When you find out, you
Yeah, we don't
feel
have to
her
say it, but
anger.
that's a I mean, and he doesn't hide it. Once Josh Brolin has to tell her why she is there, he does not mince words at
No,
all. You are here for X, Y, and Z,
and
and that is why you are here.
it's so funny because her and I'm gonna butcher his last name, so I'm not even going to attempt it. Daniel, it starts with a K, I think.
Kaluuya.
He's a British actor of all things. Does
Yes, he is. He's an
who
Academy Award winning British
brilliant
actor.
actor. Ever since
Yes.
Get Out, I mean, he just stole that movie. But he is excellent in this movie, and the fact that him and Emily Blunt basically know word for word the reason why they're like the CIA cannot operate in this capacity without
CIA is not chartered for domestic intervention. Yeah, the CIA cannot operate on American soil.
right
Josh
unless
Brolin never says I work for the CIA.
he never yeah. But once
Never.
you
He works for another agency.
right
That is what she is told. He works for another agency. So yeah, but yeah, he just slaps her with it at the end when he just says blah, and he goes, "May we continue?"
right
It basically is what he says. Can we go now? To
yeah
go back to what they're doing
yeah
and what they're actually doing, or why they're operating. That's when you really start getting into the politics of stuff.
right
And a lot of people might. I can't remember what movie I was talking about the other day. I was talking about Vengeance with Ryan the other day when we recorded our review of that, and I said I speak fluent liberal and conservative because I don't lock myself into any news. So my personal views aside, I can watch every movie and I can go, liberals are going to love that, and liberals are going to hate that, and conservatives are going to love that, and conservatives are going to hate that, and I can tell you exactly what each one's going to complain about or think is real or what I already know all the crap I'm going to see on the internet. I
right
already know what it's going to be, and I'm just like, and I'm just trying to watch a movie. Can I watch a movie? That'd be great.
right
In this one, it's like this is the one that shows how evil the government is, but only if it's a government that's not in our control. Our control, he said
there's
with air quotes for the people listening, because if anything's okay if we're in charge, but
right
if and that applies both foreign and domestically. If we air quotes are in charge, then it's sad, but it has to be done. But if they do it, quote unquote. No, that just can't be done. So you watch this movie and there's a lot of that, but then you see, and here's the thing: the pragmatist in me totally agrees with what Josh Brolin is doing. It's like you can't fight a Hydra.
No,
You can't fight that Hydra, and
if
that's what they're trying to stop.
when your nemesis or your enemy in this line of work is fighting the dirtiest player in the game, will do anything. You're not gonna win this battle. I mean, if you're gonna be fighting clean, and if you want to fight by the rules, because they have no rules.
No, and that's established at the beginning in that beautiful crime scene.
It is.
Uh,
It's beautifully horrific.
yes, it is.
It's yeah, it's one of those things that will stick with you, and you see just enough. And I actually think you get more from the dialogue, especially when the attorney general comes in and asks how many bodies were found in this cartel house, and they were
Yeah,
like, "Well, there's 15 in the hallway, 20 in the bedroom, and we haven't even opened the attic or the crawl
all
space yet."
space unit.
I'm just like,
Yeah,
wow,
it's and that it's just so matter of factly said by the poor crime scene guy in his
right,
little tie-neck suit, with his clipboard. It's just, but
right,
yeah. And so yeah, I'm not advocating for a clandestine invasion south of the border,
right.
but for terms of the film, it's like, yeah, they have a point. Uh, it's that's it's there. There's a thing. There's a part of war that if you're going to fight a war, be it a conventional landmass, they want my natural resources or whatever war, or a war to stop something to just defend, you need if you're not fighting to win, you're fighting to lose.
Absolutely.
And
And
that is the philosophy that Brolin is. He's embodying that. He's the tip of that spear in
he's
Sicario.
so it's interesting because we get these three different personalities put together. We got Brolin, who's the very kind of I'll do whatever it takes kind of guy. If I got to bend some rules and occasionally break the rules, so be it.
He's results oriented.
He is, and he knows what's going to get results. Emily Blunt is kind of this idealist fish out of water who's brought in only
Yep.
so all the paperwork they can dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Very process oriented for all you management students out
Right.
there.
And
Um,
then we get the wild card in Benicio del Toro.
he's the he's the subject matter expert.
And he's also this kind of agent of chaos that the U.S. government knows that they kind of need because he has. And you actually get much. I think that the two movies work very well together because you get to see more of his character come out. But we find out through other.
Good. I need to watch that then.
Um,
If Roland and him are back, then yes, I'll
they
go
are,
out and watch it.
and Taylor Sheridan did do the screenplay again, so it's the same. I would just say that
Yes, he did.
it just kind of happens with sequels. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of sequels that have surpassed the original. So,
Right.
but as far as a nice companion piece, Dave the Soldado works very well. But we find out that I believe he was a lawyer. I think he was a lawyer for the
Yeah.
cartel.
We found, in the
Right.
first movie.
He was a
Yeah.
lawyer for the cartel, and something happened, and they decapitated his wife and threw his daughter into a barrel of acid.
Yeah.
We don't see any of this, but it's kind of the frank glibness of the way Brolin delivers this dialogue because,
Oh, he's very no nonsense.
yeah, he doesn't
He's
sugarcoat. Yeah,
do you know he kind of reminds me of, we're talking about it, is if you've ever watched Serenity with the Firefly movie.
I have, but it's been years.
He's very much the operative.
Okay.
Josh Brolin understands that things need to be done. Somebody has to do them, and he's that guy. And he
Right.
just kind of accepts that role and moves through it. And I like that a lot.
And there's so many little things in this movie. Like there's a shot where she's trying to she's waiting outside with her partner, and all these people are talking this interagency meeting about this task force, and
Oh,
she
near the beginning, yeah,
right, they're going and then she happens to notice that Josh Brolin is wearing sandals.
Yep.
Everyone else in this sitting around this table is suit and tie, very dressed to the
Yeah,
nines.
he's got like dusty cargo pants, flip flops, and a t-shirt with maybe like a Hawaiian shirt over
I
it, a
Yeah,
faded ratty out Hawaiian shirt or something.
He's got like cargo
Yeah,
shorts on. He could tell that he just came off an airplane. This is a guy that sleeps on airplanes,
yep,
probably has no place to call home. Um, that
yeah,
just But you can tell the fact that all these higher ups are sitting around the table and no one has scoffed or said anything about this guy's the dress code, that this
nope,
is somebody important. And it's clever filmmaking like that where another director or another screenwriter might hit you over the head with it.
yep,
um but it's just a subtle shot of her looking into the boardroom and noticing that he's wearing these beat up ratty sandals that you probably got at Walmart or Target
yep,
or something, and it's like the subtle things like that, and the inference of waterboarding. You don't see it, but it's
right.
heavily inferred. But it's been in the news enough, and they could have
If you
very
don't know what's going to happen, you haven't been paying attention.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very uncomfortable that
Well, it's
scene.
uncomfortable because Benicio del Toro's he's having a drink from the water cooler in the hallway. And then the one guy comes out, talks to him for a second. He makes some snide or rude comment.
Right.
The guy leaves and he throws his cup away and he just grabs the full 5 gallon jug or 10 gallon jug, whatever those things are, off the floor and starts walking toward the interrogation room.
And then the
He's
guy
like, it's
says,
not because I'm thirsty.
yeah, the guy goes, and then the other guy's about to follow Benicio in, and he says, no, it's better that you have no knowledge about what's
Yep.
about to happen. And you see the one guy leave the interrogation room and turn
Flip the
off the
camera
video
off.
cameras
Yep.
off. And Benicio pulls the biggest power move I think I've ever seen. This guy is bound, tied to a chair, and he walks up. He's almost straddling him like he's going to give him a lap dance. His crotch is basically in this guy's. This is like a power move like I've
Yep.
never seen before. You're just like, that's an act of dominance right there.
Yep.
That's like that's the dog and that's the dog that runs this park kind of
Yep.
thing. It's just there's so much unseen that is just you have to infer through dialogue and through what happens that
Behavior is huge in
yes
Denny's films. You look at them all; it's what people are doing. No one has to say anything. I don't have to explain what I'm doing. You watch a guy walk around. You will learn a lot watching someone walk around their apartment or their house. Um, I'm
right.
sure someone could psychoanalyze me to death watching me walk around their house.
Oh, people would have a
But
field day if there was if I don't know, the
yeah,
people watching me in my apartment talking to myself and watching bizarre YouTube videos. This poor man.
right. But no. So you learn a lot. And so yeah, it's just as long as you're being observant, you learn a lot.
Right.
This is not a movie that you want to just have on in the background.
None of his movies are. You mean?
No,
I
because
mean,
the effort he put into making them beautiful to watch demands that you watch them.
right.
So, yeah, I had forgotten actually that Daniel Kaluuya was in this, and Victor Garber is in this.
Mm-hmm.
Another solid character actor. Um, one of my favorites, by the way, and I'm going to throw him a shout out here because he was in another spy series, and that's Jeffrey Donovan, who doesn't get nearly enough screen time in this. He was in Burn Notice. But
He's the guy with the mustache and the car, right?
yep,
The no nonsense kind of guy who makes like really
bad,
tasteless jokes,
yes,
bad tasteless jokes.
yep,
He adds a little bit of comedic. Yeah, but his
early on, but then it kind of tailors because that's early when she is just coming in,
right.
and then he kind of wanders away because I think it's the rest of the movie's too heavy. So he kind of tapers off because now she's into it's not funny anymore.
No, and
It's not that. He's off doing something else now.
right, and I think it kind of it's. I mean, that's the way this movie works. Is that the villains we see very little of them, but when we do initially, we see the corrupt police officer. Um,
Yep.
who's humanized, but because his son just wants to play soccer and he just wants his dad to watch him play soccer. And
Yep.
then we see when this cartel leader finds out about what happened to his brother. He's outside on the deck watching his kids play in this beautiful pool. So we don't get like these evil, sinister people like in a dark lair, like,
No.
oh, we got to get Batman kind of thing. It's so human
Yep.
and that's what works to this movie's credit. And the fact that everything is so vague and broad as far as what exactly are our objectives here and who is on the team, who's not on the team, who comes and goes, is that I think that's just the nature of what a real kind of group would be like. Like you would have people coming and going because people would be like, "This is not what I signed up for. I'm out."
Yep.
You would have people coming and go. You'd have someone that would be called in just for like, "We need help getting this guy over the border." Other than that, this guy pieces out. He's got other work to do. It's so natural and
Yep.
it's so unnatural because it's not something that I mean, if you're listening to us, the chances are you're not in a drug cartel or nor are you working border patrol. So it's
Right.
very unnatural, but at the same time, the characters feel natural.
Right.
And I think the fact that they don't really put a big face or a big name on any of these villains is because once you get one of these cartel leaders, there's a half a dozen others waiting to
Yep.
spring up. It's like that game at the fair where you hit the
Whack-a-mole.
whack-a-mole. Thank you. Yes, it's like whack-a-mole. Once you hit one mole, there's going to be two or three popping up. It's an
Yep.
endless kind of thing. So to not really put faces on these villains and just to kind of have them spoke about in very generic terms, it's just because that's the nature of what these people are dealing with when they're trying to battle these cartels.
Yeah.
It's never going to be like it wasn't like with World War II that if we got Hitler, that's it. That's end of
Yeah.
the war. This is we get one cartel leader, that's fine. There's still dozens that are there and there are dozens growing by the day. So, it's kind
No.
of
No, the thing I like the thing I like is really the story of this film is there's nothing really special about this tale. I mean, it's been told before; it'll be told again.
yeah.
But it's the performances that we get out of our three leads that really sells it. And again, Taylor Sheridan, yeah, to come out of the gate with this is ridiculous. But
You know.
it's he. Uh, everyone is humanized, even the villains are humanized,
Mhm.
as you said. So it is this big, huge interpersonal drama, and on the American side, really, it's almost a workplace drama,
Yeah.
and then and then you have this crime drama going on. But it is all because everything boils down to the people in the situations. Brolin revels in his. Emily Blunt does not necessarily revel in her role in that. Del Toro lives for his role, which is not really understood until the end.
And the thing is, there are parts of this movie that could very easily um you could villainize Brolin and Del Toro. But I'm thinking of the scene with John Bernthal, the corrupt cop who seduces Emily Blunt, and then
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
still not sure exactly how she figured it out, but she knows something's wrong, and they battle, and he's about to kill her. He's choking her out, and
Yeah.
Benicio del Toro shows up, but she says, "You use me as bait," and they go, "No, you used yourself as bait." And then previously, because this goes back to the scene with the bank where they busted. There's also this weird financial thing going on with how the cartel has all this cash going
Yep.
in, and that they deposit $9,000 into this account, but it's not really an account. It's actually like a line of credit, so it never shows up as cash.
Yeah,
There's a
you
whole
get a forensic accounting thing going
yeah,
on.
but he tells her, "Don't go in the bank. Don't go in the bank." And there's a scene where she goes in, she's talking to the banking people, and you could see it. Then it pulls back, and you see security camera footage of her in the bank.
Because now she's associated with the case. She
Right.
put a target on herself. Yeah.
And it could have been very easy to, you could have dropped that little plot line and just have used uh, Brolin and Del Toro using her as bait for someone. But no, it turns out that they were actually they had her back, and if it was, if they weren't watching it, if they didn't know exactly what was going to happen, she could have ended up a casualty of this war. So, I mean, there's so many brilliant little things throughout the screenplay, and that's why this is the kind of movie that I've rewatched. I've rewatched all of Denis' movies multiple times. Specifically, Prisoners was one that I needed to take a break after watching it because it's so intense. But
Yeah.
I rewatched just because of the performances that he gets out of these actors are kind of against type too. But then Enemy was one. Again, it kind of helped. It was only in an hour and a half, but after
Yeah.
watching Enemy, I immediately started rewatching. I was like, I'm missing something here.
Yeah.
But Sicario is great because there's just, I mean, like you said, it could have been just another generic war on drugs movie, but there's something about the way these characters are developed and just the language and their backstories or lack of backstory that you can only infer is just something that I mean, it's just a
Yep.
great matching of a great screenwriter and a great director, kind of at like
Yeah.
the height of their. I mean, well,
And
not
then
even at the height.
then the
Come out.
ridiculous performances is, I mean, it's nuts. It's just the perfect confluence.
Right.
And so, so I was watching, when I was watching, I was like, it is kind of, and even when I got to the end, I'm like, well, it's kind of pretty standard crime fare. But the fact that I was still sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, okay, why am I still worried about this? It's like, oh, it's because, because of all the character interplay, that is real. It feels real. It feels authentic. Um, when she feels used, you feel it. When Brolin feels justified, you feel it. At the end, when Del Toro is doing what he's doing, you're like, yeah, I can see that. It's like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I'm rock on, my brother.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where, like, yeah, it's because it's so well done that it elevates what is a really good script.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
I think you could say that about a lot of Denis movies. Something like Arrival
based on a
is.
short story,
I'm sorry.
based on a short story,
Right. I mean,
short story, and stretched it out.
he's capable of elevating this kind of material. Where a movie where aliens and humans are learning to interact and communicate with each other on paper sounds very boring
Oh,
to
I know,
me.
right? This shouldn't work. What are
But
you doing? Well, we're teaching aliens English.
there's something
Oh,
about his style of filmmaking and his casting is always like he's always casted his movies. Even if I don't necessarily like the movies, they're cast so well
yeah,
that you can't help but kind of get invested in these characters. So, I mean, just
yeah, greater than the sum of its parts,
right.
and
And
that comes down to the director. I mean, I can't tell you how many movies I watch that are less than the sum of their parts, and an amazing number that are exactly the sum of their parts. And you're like, well, that was perfectly adequate.
adequate, right.
It's like, I guess, sure. I watched one last night that I can't talk about yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to lump it into that yet. It might be slightly better than that, but it might be exactly the sum of its parts, um, as inadequate. So, but no, yeah, he tends to elevate his films.
Yeah, and again, I kind of want to I kind of want to watch some interviews with like Taylor Sheridan to like where he like just where he's come up with like his ideas because everything like a lot of his movies are very crime based. Hell or High Water is a great movie about
That's a
brothers.
family drama.
Yeah. Um
So
and then Wind River as far as a murder investigation on a Native American murder investigation on a Native American reservation. Um,
Yeah.
is just that's and I think that was the first one that he directed, and it's a beautiful. That's a
Mhm.
great movie for people that haven't seen. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people have seen Hell or High Water, because that got I mean, rightfully so, got a lot of hype for its amazing performances. Jeff Bridges, just knocking it out of the
Tommy Lee
park
Jones,
again.
Chris Pine, Ben Foster. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does not suck in the cast department.
No.
Uh,
No.
yeah, no, actually, Taylor Sheridan, they did a piece on him 60, not 60 minutes, Sunday, CBS Sunday Morning, I think. They did a whole thing with him talking about how he got into writing. He was a cowboy and something, one of his, he somehow, he like did something. He helped a friend out doing something. He's like, you can make money at this. He's like, what? It's way easier than riding Broncos and whatnot.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, it was a really cool piece, and you could probably find it online. I believe it was CBS Sunday Morning. So if you look that up and look, Taylor Sheridan, you probably find that piece. It's a very interesting piece. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up because his style of writing is so unique. His perspectives on these kind of things.
They
I
talk about that a lot.
I wonder too. Maybe you could. Does he have like Native American ancestry?
I don't recall hearing it. If it was, it wasn't something that they stressed.
Okay. I just wonder because of Wind River, the way it seems like a very personal movie, Wind River. But we're talking about Sicario, which I'm
We are talking about Sicario,
um
which he wrote and wrote well.
brilliant. And like you said, the cinematography in this movie is amazing. The overhead shot, like the shot of them get stuck in a traffic jam, like the whole time it's this they
On
have
the
the
bridge.
right
Yeah,
they have the cartel leader's brother, and they're transporting him across the border, and everything's going pretty smoothly until they hit this bridge, and then
the bridge. Yep, the border
uh,
bridge.
instead of saying that there's a traffic jam, like they
Yeah, he just
zoom
pulls
out,
back into that huge overhead shot.
and it's just car after like miles of cars not moving, and
Yep,
you like that's good filmmaking, that's good storytelling, because that ratchets up the tension, like
yep.
you know
Well, and then you see they're looking at cars. They're looking at this car. They're looking at that car. They're looking at the other car, just out the windows on the sides and everything else. So yeah, the tension building is really well done. He's really good at that too, uh, with the way he frames a scene.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it's very rewarding to watch that and sit there and be, you're nervous, you're as anxious as the people in the car.
And if you've
Um,
ever wanted to visit Mexico, a real Mexico, and not like a resort, just watch the scene in Juarez
right?
and watch Emily Blunt's reaction to like what life in Juarez is like, and watch the scene where there are bodies
Hanging from
hanging
bridges,
upside down,
overpasses. Yeah,
mutilated, like the Predator straight up showed up in this.
right.
That's immediately what I thought. I was like, that's right out of the Predator. And I was like, but you know what? I mean, unfortunately, if you read the news and like you check things out, that's the
That's
reality of the situation. This isn't like a sci-fi horror movie. This is the real horrors of what the drug war does and what these cartels do.
yep. It's
Powerful stuff.
it is. It's so incredible. So I'm glad you picked it
Oh,
out of these stack of films.
like I said, this is a treat because I don't generally get to talk about more recent movies, and I do a segment about movies that I think are going to be future cult classics, and
Right?
Sicario wasn't one of them. Although I will say that I think Enemy has cult potential, because
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of movie that people will rediscover over the years through word of mouth. And again, I can't hype that movie enough. It's a movie that I'm almost afraid to show people because I think most people,
If you,
most
yeah, I mean, if you could show them everything but the last 60 seconds,
yeah,
I think most people could hang,
right.
but that last like 60 seconds,
It's
that's where you're going to lose people.
That's the thing. But talk about a great ending. This movie, I mean, I don't want to say it ends with a whimper and not a bang because there's no big. I mean, the big
Nope.
shootout has already happened, but the last scene of this movie is a very intense conversation between Emily Blunt and Benicio del Toro, where he basically says, "I need you to sign this piece of paper."
Yeah.
And this piece of paper is saying that everything that we did for this operation was above board, was we did it by the
By the book.
rules, by the book,
Yep.
and it's so just the tension between these two because it's not sexual tension. It's very much, and it is addressed that Benicio sees his daughter in Emily Blunt, and
Yeah.
it's mentioned a couple times. He says, "You remind me of the girl that they took away." Um, he says stuff like, "You look like a little girl when you're scared," and just like it's so
Yeah.
intimidating, and he's got a gun out the entire time, and
Yep.
there's actually a part where he holds up the gun right under her, her
Yep.
her neck, right there, right under the throat, against the throat, and it's so intense. He's like, "I need you to sign this." She goes, "I can't," and he goes, "That would be a bit." I think he said that would be suicide. And I
Yep.
think it's pretty much like, if you don't sign this paper, we're gonna find someone to forge your signature, and no one's gonna ever hear from you again. Like that's
Yep.
kind of the power that that these operatives have. They work
Yep.
for the government, but they're almost beyond the government. They're not
There. Yes.
necessarily
There.
above the government. They're like on a whole different level.
Oh yeah. It's that's what's I love films with that kind of aspect to it. And then when he at the after that when he's walking away from her apartment,
And
that
she's standing on the
last
balcony.
looking he with the yeah, and he just looks at her like,
You could.
"What do you could, but then you'd have to explain it." And so yeah, you're left with that. But yeah, it's really a fascinating piece, and I'm glad you made me watch it finally.
I'm glad that you finally watched it.
I
Especially
know,
having
right
the
now I have to
uh,
track down the second.
yeah, they make a great companion piece. Again, if you like I think what's missing is that you don't have this like I said, Emily Blunt is kind of our access into this
Right.
movie. So we kind of go along for the ride with her. That's kind of missing in the second one, but
Hmm.
there's enough of a good story there, and I mean, again, you've got Josh Brolin and Benicio del Toro. Again, Emily Blunt knocked it out of the park. She's fantastic. But
Yep.
again, these movies ride and die by Del Toro's performances. He's
Right.
so good at being so intimidating and so scary, but there's something like he's got this charm and this kind of look, this eye that he'll give you a look with like one eye that you're just like,
Yep.
there's something about him. He's just great performances. Yeah, and other than the chewing gum by Josh Brolin, he
Right. He's good too. Real quick, before I let you plug CFC,
sure.
I'm gonna throw a movie out and you can tell me if you think it's gonna be a cult classic or a mainstream classic.
Okay.
Evil Dead Rise, coming soon.
You know,
Like apparently soon.
right, HBO Max.
That's what they tell. Some people are already saying, yeah, you really need to release that in theaters. So hopefully they'll give it a limited run.
They
I'll go see it if they put it in a
should.
room.
They should. That's the kind of movie you want to see on the big screen.
Right.
A good old fat. It's going to be. I'm gonna have to go cult because Evil Dead has never been a mainstream thing.
It's it's like the biggest. It's like the most mainstream cult series out there. It seems like everyone knows it.
Right.
Everyone knows it. No one ever. It's not name dropped a lot unless someone does it first,
No.
and then everyone's in.
But
But
then again, I also say that there are some movies that started out small, became cult movies, and then eclipsed cult status. And the biggest example of that I could say is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
that's one of those things that I can I'm willing to bet vital parts of my anatomy that neither of my parents have seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but they are more than familiar with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and not only that, are familiar kind of with the midnight screening kind of thing that goes
yeah.
along with it. So something like Evil Dead is close to eclipsing cult status, I think. But I don't think it's ever going to be mainstream kind of stuff. But I'd love to be surprised. I
I
really
know,
would.
right?
So
What do you think? How do you think the movie's going to be? What's your hope? You hoping it's good?
I am cautiously optimistic. Because I would have immediately said, it's not going to be as good as the other ones, or la 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 la, because that's kind of the feeling I had with 2013. And then I saw the 2013 one, and I was like, okay, these
That's pretty
guys
good.
get it. They're going back to the roots. They're no more goofy humor. This is a real horror movie, and that's kind of the beauty and the genius of Evil Dead, is that it can be all those kinds of things. It could be a very dark, straightforward, no nonsense, bleak horror movie that'll
Yep.
scare your pants off and have more, blood and gore in it than you're probably ready for. But then it can also be something like Army of Darkness or Ash versus the Evil Dead, which is a great kind of marriage of the two.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just like the genius of Sam Raimi. And I know that unlike certain times when I see like Wes Craven presents a remake of one of his movies, or John Carpenter has his name
Right.
slapped on as an executive producer for like the Fog remake that was completely unnecessary. I know that
Right.
Sam Raimi is so passionate about the franchise and the series that he is so careful about who he's letting play in his little his his playground. He's
Yeah.
not going to
His
just let
sandbox.
any Tom, Dick, or Harry come in and mess with it. So I think that we're in for a treat with Evil Dead
Um,
Rise.
I think I don't have the director's name at hand, but I saw that he's an Irish director. He did a horror film that I saw a couple years ago. The guy that's doing Evil Dead Rise, and I apologize for not remembering his name off the top of my head. Um,
What about you? Do you think it's going to be another
I,
2013, or you think it's going to
I
be
think it's going to get the same reception, which is sad because I thought 2013 was it did what it needed to do. It is an Evil Dead movie that doesn't it didn't pander to the original Evil Deadites.
no?
Um, so, and I think this one, like I said, or like you said, Raimi is involved. He throws it. They chose the director. Uh, and like I said, I saw his other film, and it creepy as balls, dude.
Okay,
If
okay.
you look it up, find that movie, watch, just creepy as balls. So if he brings that energy to Evil Dead Rise, I will be a happy camper as an Evil Dead fan.
Because I
Uh,
think that's again the beauty and the genius of Evil Dead is if you're invited into this very exclusive camp, and Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell are going to let you in on the Evil Dead franchise. I
yep,
think you want to hit a grand slam like Fede
you do.
Alvarez probably did.
Yep.
He was probably giddy as a kid on Christmas morning when he found out he's getting to do.
That he was allowed, that they bought it, and he's like, yes.
Yeah,
So yeah. Um, so okay, so we've tangented out to Evil Dead from Sicario, two vastly different films.
right.
Um, real quick, Chris, tell everyone where they can find you
Oh,
out there in the wide world.
so, luckily enough, I chose a title, the Cult Film Companion podcast. If you Google Cult Film Companion, we will be the first thing that comes up. Also, we are on
Nice.
Twitter and Instagram at Cult Film Comp, CultFilmComp. We're on all the major podcast platforms. I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram. But again, I kind of lucked out. So now that if you Google Cult Film Companion, you don't even have to put in podcast, just Cult Film Companion. Um, Other than there's a Japanese one that covers like manga and like obscure
Ooh,
Japanese movies. That was the original Japanese cult film companion. Other than that, I'm the only game in town, so I kind of lucked
you
out.
should hunt them down and do a collab.
I don't think they're active anymore. It's like from the '90s.
Oh,
And
that's
again,
sad.
I need to work on my Japanese. It's not.
Now that's true. You probably
It's,
need to
it's
do that.
weak,
Do it all
weak at
through Google
best.
Translate. It's fine. It'll be hilarious. It'll be
Right,
great. The longest editing session ever.
right.
So great. I encourage everyone to go over and listen to you over there at the Cult Film Companion. Follow you on Twitter. Follow the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast on Twitter as well. That would be incredibly helpful. We are at VS Movie Podcast. We're on YouTube if you're watching this at Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. Yeah, and good stuff. Just as an aside, I've got like 6 different things I have to do for every one of these episodes now, because I have to write them up. If I see a movie, I have to write it up, hopefully I get to write it up. If I don't just get to talk about it or do a video about it, because I have to have stuff. It's crazy. So I almost everything I do now is not in one spot. It's if I write it, it's on the website.
Right.
If I record it, it's anywhere you want to listen to a podcast because the feed is out there.
Right.
If it's a video, it's only on YouTube, and hopefully I can tag it on the website. It's like, oh my God, it's such a mess. But I'm trying to get everything back to where I'm in one, where everything winds up together, where you can get to everything from one spot. But everything eventually gets tagged on Twitter.
Right. Yeah, because I'll just break the news here. I'm doing a written component to the Cult Film Companion that's going to be up on two different websites at the very least. So I got to get, like you said, I got to get all my ducks are not in a row. All my ducks are wandering aimlessly.
Yeah, that's why I'm having to write more, because I've done this long enough, and I'm very grateful. And this is the first time I think I've said it out loud. I just made it into the Utah Film Critics Association.
Congratulations!
So
that's awesome.
Thank you. But what that entails now is, between all the screeners that come through my inbox, I'm getting more in-person screeners. I'm going to get awards consideration garbage come end of the year, and it's like, oh, did I finally bite off more than I can chew? So now it's like I have to actually write more reviews and not just talk about them with Ryan. It's like, oh no, I actually have to write them all up. So it's like,
yeah,
that's a lot of time. And again, not my day job.
No, mine either. Yeah, so like, but I see, be careful what you wish for.
I know, right? So for those of you that listen, watch, and or read either of us at this point, we appreciate it.
We do.
Help us out with the follows, the likes, the reviews. That is all incredibly helpful to maybe help us not have it be not our day jobs at some point down the road. But I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can physically do it, because I love it.
Yeah.
I love movies so much.
Me too.
I love talking about them. It's just a blast. You can learn so much. You can feel so much. You can experience so much. And they often, though not always, bring a sense of community to those who do watch them. So, especially cult films.
They do.
Sometimes the more niche the cult film, the tighter the community.
Absolutely.
A lot of times.
If you ever meet another fellow Evil Dead fan, like you've just like an instant friendship, because the sense of humor is there. Just like the kind of there's just
there's Evil Dead people, there's Python people,
right?
There's you find your tribe, as if you will, in the cult world, and you will have friends for life that you may never see again, but you will see on Twitter or wherever, and they will be your bestest friend. And you can always drop a meme that they will appreciate. So, Chris, thank you so much again for coming on.
My pleasure.
And talking Sicario. We will do this again.
Absolutely.
In one direction or another. We'll see how that turns out. You are always welcome here.
Thank you.
If you see a recent movie that you don't feel like you want on your thing, give me a shout. We'll see if I've watched it, and we'll talk about it. So,
I saw. Have you seen Red Rocket? Just out of the blue, just a random.
Yes, I saw Red Rocket.
Okay.
There's nothing redeeming about that movie. There's nothing redeeming about that movie at
What about
all.
Pig?
Pig is fucking spectacular. Pig is spectacular. And the most spectacular part of Pig is his monologue in the restaurant to the chef.
Brilliant.
That is the single greatest. That is the scene that should remind everyone that, oh yeah, Nicolas Cage can win a fucking Oscar. That is the scene where you're like, oh yeah, that guy can act. He's not just a lunatic running around screaming on screen.
Yeah, that's the perfect. It's the perfect non-Nicolas Cage movie. Well, it's the perfect Nicolas Cage movie to show to non-Nicolas Cage fans.
Yes,
because you don't get anything typical from a Nicolas Cage performance. I'm trying to think of the more recent movies that I saw. Pig, I absolutely, Pig just blew me away. As a Nicolas Cage fan, I was just like, I can appreciate when he's chewing the scenery and being over the top, but to see something like Pig that is so subdued, and like you said, that monologue, for everyone that's seen, they know the scene.
Oh yeah. What do you want to do?
Brilliant screenwriting. Brilliant.
Did you see The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
That one I haven't seen yet. That one I need to see.
That is also good. It's no Pig,
But what
but
what
it's
you know?
I know after Pig it's tough, but Pedro Pascal is also excellent in that one. So
Oh, excellent.
that's good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So wow, now let's say we went from Sicario to Evil Dead to Nicolas Cage, and
Nicholas.
on that note,
Yes.
let's go ahead and wrap it up.
All right.
Chris, thanks again. Everyone out there, follow the Cult Film Companion on Twitter. Follow the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. Anywhere I am, that would be lovely as well. So till next time, Chris, thanks again. We will talk to everyone out there.